Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Parintam Vande Guru Param. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti Om, Namaste. So we begin today page as Lynn told us. You have this text with you, Marco. Did you pass the text to Marco today, Claudio? 64, no problem.
Marco, se mi riesci a passare la tua mail via WhatsApp, te lo mando.
The verse 31st, the knot of the heart is cut, all doubts are resolved, and all his or her karmas get exhausted when the vision of him or her who is high and low takes place. So the knot of the heart is cut. This concept of the knot of the heart is something that I have seen here and there in some of our texts, and I'm interested to see if Swami Paramarthananda is going to unfold it, explain it. But basically, is those the knots that somehow obstruct the flow. When you have a knot, it's a kind of obstruction, and this obstruction is ignorance. Okay, we could put this knot as excess of rajas and tamas that causes all these doubts. So when the knot is cut, so to speak, the doubts are resolved, and the karmas are exhausted when the vision of him refers to Brahman, okay? It's not him and her. The vision, the non-dual vision, the vision of Brahman, as myself, the only self there is. When we have this clear vision, this is interesting because Vedanta is a process by which we start integrating these bits and pieces of understanding regarding of these teachings, these declarations about ourselves. And then as this goes integrating, in the beginning it may be a puzzle that is missing many parts, but gradually the puzzle start developing, and we begin having a clear picture. Oh, you see, it is a landscape so and so. You understand? In the beginning, you don't have. So you start developing this vision of him, the vision of him, the vision of yourself. Okay? You start seeing Brahman as yourself, and the doubts before that were obstructing my clear vision of my true nature. They are resolved, they dissolve themselves. Okay, so this concept of Vedantic vision is a very nice one because it happens in that manner. Okay, you start developing a vision of what you are in the light of what the teachings say, until your understanding of what you are is in total harmony with what the teachings say about you. Okay, so this is a vision that develops, a vision of I Brahman. And then there is something that said here, who is high and low, meaning to say it's beyond the pair of opposites. Okay, so all duality, all pairs of opposites are just integrate in this vision and say, okay, all duality here is nothing but Brahman. Okay, I'm no longer distracted by the pair of opposites. Now let's see what Swami Swami P talks about this knot of the heart. With this 31st verse, the first part is over of Drsya Viveka. So this is the last verse of the first part of Drsya is over. The author has talked about all aspects of the Vedantic teaching, concluding with this 31st verse. He talked about the problem of samsara as the non-discrimination between the real seer and the unreal seer, or the absolute seer and the relative seer, the real and the apparently real. At the subjective level, it is the non-discrimination between the real seer and the unreal seen. So we are talking about the unreal seen, and the unreal seen becomes a seer when there is a misidentification with a relative seer. You remember the Drsya Viveka is about the seer and the seen. So the absolute seer is free, limitless conscious existence, which is not an experiencing knowing entity, but it is the real seer, the absolute seer. Okay? And then we have the seen. What is the seen? The seen is the human intellect. Okay? But the human intellect somehow it dresses up as the absolute seer and takes itself to be the real truth, the absolute truth. No, I am the seer here. But this discrimination has to go to the level of discriminating even the intellect, the human intellect, the highly developed intellect, human intellect, we know, which is a reflective consciousness, and the nature of reflective consciousness is identical to the original consciousness, but yet reflect consciousness is not free and independent. Okay, it depends on original consciousness, which is its true essential nature. Okay, so we need to understand this nuance, and we know that the absolute seer is not an entity that experiences and knows. Okay, but yet we have to establish our identity in that absolute seer, which is not an experiencing entity. Understand? And that's where people I say, no, there is nothing there. This is weird. So why am I going to establish myself with the absolute seer if I'm not going to be experiencing anything as Brahman? You understand? So, but as Brahmani, although you don't experience anything, but the moment you know, Claude, I am that Brahman, your experience knowing entity, meaning to say the intellect, purifies and starts experience itself in the world from a different angle, from a different perspective. It experiences the world from the standpoint, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the absolute seer, appearing as a relative seer. And although I am the intellect experiencing the sense organs and experience the world, I know that my true nature and my perspective is I am that absolute consciousness, and the intellect, the mind, the sense organs, and the physical instruments of perception, they are all known to me. And I'm the only principle that can never be reduced to a relative knower. I can never be reduced to the seen. I am the seer that is never reduced to the seen. So we understand, just to contextualize the Drsya, the discrimination between the real seer from any and everything that can be seen. Okay, so Vedanta can be as simple as that. If we can keep this discrimination alive between what can never be seen and everything that is seen, and I am that which can never be seen. I cannot turn the intellect against myself and then see my fundamental nature, because my fundamental nature cannot be seen objectively, but is available for knowledge, for claiming my as my true nature, as we know. At the subjective level, which is the non-discrimination between the real and the unreal seen, the seer seen non-discrimination. So we need to have that level of understanding. Okay, So it is, there are several ways we can go about with this discrimination. Okay, we can look at it from I'm discriminating the subject from the object. Okay, so what is a subject and what is an object? Anything that can be objectified. This is the best definition that I came up with to bring about this clear, simple, and practical understanding of what is an object. An object and anything that can be objectified. Okay? So if I can objectify my mind is an object. If I can objectify my emotions, my emotion is an object. Okay? So we can look at subject, object, discrimination, we can look from the angle of satya mithya. When we look from the discrimination of satya mithya, we look from a different angle. I discriminate that which never changes from that which is constantly changing. Mithya is that which is an apparent phenomenon in constant flux of modification, changing. So now I'm doing my final discrimination from the angle of satya mithya, the unchanging and the changing phenomenon. Right? So we can look from different angles. We can see the experiencer and the experience, but ultimately here, we see the teachings of Drsya, we are doing the discrimination between the seer and the seen. At the subject level, the real is called chit, the consciousness, and at the objective level, the real is called sat. So we are presenting Brahman as its qualities or nature. Okay, it's not really qualities because Brahman is free of attributes and qualities, but is the features or the nature of consciousness. So Brahman is Sat Chit, is existence and consciousness. So and then here Swami presents that teaching that is very important. Okay, at the subject level, because it is the Jiva that is doing this process of discrimination. And then about what is this Brahman? From the subjective level, this Brahman is this consciousness doing the discrimination. I'm doing my work, exercising my chit nature as reflective consciousness, which is of the nature of original consciousness. On the subject level, I'm doing the discrimination of Brahman in the world, and Brahman manifests as the chit on the subjective level. On the object level, meaning to say the physical material universe out there, Brahman manifests as Sat, the existence that concedes or lends existence to all names and forms, all inert objects in the world. Okay, so the subject level, chit, object level is Sat. So I can do these meditations as we saw in the previous classes, seeing Brahman in the world. How we
Your microphone, Lindo.
Okay, I said that the internet here is much faster, but it has some drops, as it seems. So good that it did not cut us off completely. So we were looking at the discrimination between Brahman, and I need to establish what is Brahman. Brahman is Satchitananda. On the subject level, I see Brahman as my human consciousness. Okay, it's Chit, the power to know and to experience through the intellect. And on the objective, I see Brahman as the Namarupas of the universe, all the names and forms. I see Brahman as the inert universe of objects. So I see Brahman and I see Brahman. Subjective, I see Brahman. How so? I see Brahman as my my consciousness. And I can see Brahman right away through my consciousness, even in considering the absence of the physical material world. I know I am consciousness, and if I am consciousness, I exist as consciousness. You can see Satchit always together because Satchit are the two aspects of the same Brahman. Okay, it's like the two sides of the same coin. But we say that objectively we can still see Brahman when we interact with the world, because we see Brahman by rejecting the Namarupas and seeing that everything that exists as a name and a form and qualities is just a superimposition in conscious existence. Okay, is one non-dual existence and appears as a diversity, infinite numbers of configurations of name, colors, and forms. But I just reject this superimposition of Maya, and I take the existence as non-dual, and I know that everything that exists in the objective world is nothing but Brahman. So that's what Swami Paramarthananda is saying here. The non-discrimination is the cause of samsara. So if we know that this inability to discriminate, you see the first and most important, let's say, most fundamental qualification needed for our success in this process of Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana is discrimination. Discrimination is an intellectual faculty. And it's not enough that we have a good discriminating intellect. So this discriminating intellect needs to understand certain things, certain principles, in the phenomenal world. And these basic principles are Dharma. Why? Because at the beginning, everybody knows I have my power of choice. I know how to discriminate. Okay? I connect the dots and I choose on a moment to moment. But we don't want to waste our discriminating faculty, intellectual faculty, only discriminating between what I like and what I do not like, what I want and what I do not want. So this power of choice, discrimination, needs to be refined so that I discriminating in the base of what is dharmic and what is adharmic, what elevates me, what purifies me, and what is going to decline or even produce further samsara in my experience, okay? Disturbance and so on. So we need to understand that this discrimination is something freely available, but when we look around, we see people who discriminates without any consideration in regards to these cosmic universal values, these cosmic universal laws or principles that structures the Dharma field, the field of interaction. So the discrimination, the non-discrimination, we can see we need to learn how to discriminate between Dharma and Dharma before we learn to discriminate the seer, the absolute seer from the thing. Because to discriminate Satya from Mithya, the subject from the object, you understand? Satya from Mithya, we need to have this power, intellectual faculty developed by exercising the discrimination between Dharma and Adharma. And we need to keep sacrificing our desires and aversions, our likes and dislikes in the altar of Dharma, as we say, a beautiful construct. We sacrifice our likes and dislikes, what I want and what I don't want, desires and aversion, at the altar of Dharma, because Dharma is superior than my program, my likes and dislikes. So the non-discrimination between the seer and the seen is going to cause samsara. Yeah? So what is samsara? Is the belief that what I see is real and it's meant to resolve my human problems. Okay, what I see, as we know, is just mithya, is something that is changing moment to moment, and it's not really real. And furthermore, it does not contain intrinsically the happiness that I'm searching for, the happiness I find in my true nature. Okay, because this knowledge in regards to my true nature is going to, you know, permanently pacify my mind, or for mostly pacify my mind, and I can enjoy this apparent reality called mithya. No? So samsara is due to the inability to discriminate the real from the unreal, the seer from the seen. I take myself to see the seen, and then as the seen, I am limited, okay, and I'm defected, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to feel insecure, and I will going to suffer all those emotions that we define as the sickness of samsara. Why? Because I identified with the sin rather than stay as the seer. So this, the non-discrimination, brings us back to samsara, and this is nothing new to us, because we are getting mixed up with what we see. Huh? So now the discrimination is the solution. The remedy is to exercise this discrimination, which of course requires a refined intellect, a refined discriminating intellect, of course. I have to separate the I, the cheat, from the body-mind complex. So on the subject level, I have to separate I, myself, free, limitless consciousness, from the intellect. And this is easily said, but a little bit more difficult to accomplish, because the intellect is so intimately attached to consciousness. Everything is attached to consciousness. Consciousness does not attach on anything, but it's so intimately. When we talk about our physical body, you say physical body is attached to consciousness. How so? No, I can't believe it. The physical body is the source of consciousness, because consciousness comes out of the physical body. But no, we know it's none of that. Okay, but when we talk about the mind, the intellect, it's so intimately related to consciousness. Yet we need to discriminate. Yet we have to see. So I have to discriminate I, consciousness, from my cheat, my reflected consciousness, my human consciousness. My human consciousness is not what I am. But on the other hand, in the next page, we say that reflect consciousness is original consciousness, but we need to understand in which way reflect consciousness is original consciousness, in which way reflect consciousness is not original consciousness. Okay, if for reflect consciousness is fully identified as with reflect consciousness, meaning to say, I am the intellect attached to a physical body. And then this reflect consciousness, under the spell of a video of ignorance, is not consciousness, although it is. Although it is. But if this reflects consciousness got the clear, simple knowledge in respect to its true nature as original consciousness, and then reflect consciousness in truth is original consciousness. So I need to separate consciousness, original consciousness, from reflected consciousness. And how are we going to do that? Okay, I have original consciousness and I have reflect consciousness, and we have the reflecting medium, the subtle body. The subtle body needs to be purified, refined, and then we have a reflect consciousness. The reflect consciousness can be so subtle, can be so sattvic, let's say, that is so similar to original consciousness that most yogis are going to say that this reflect consciousness is the real deal. But then the problem is the reflect consciousness is going to change because the reflecting medium changed because it's integral part of media. And as the reflecting medium change, the reflect consciousness is going to change. And then the yoga is going to say, oh my God, I got myself, but I lost myself. Huh? So reflect consciousness is never going to be the same as its manifestation, okay? But yet it needs to have a purified subtle body so that it can discriminate. I reflect consciousness from original consciousness, and that is done by knowledge and understanding alone so that I can claim my nature as that which never changed. So we can see that these simple discriminations, they are very subtle. What makes it difficult to be really assimilated and claimed my nature as the absolute seer, that which is never seen, is the subtlety of this discrimination. You understand? It's simple, but it's subtle, and it has to be pragmatic. It has to be in a moment to moment. That until you have this knowledge, and then you have no need anymore to do discrimination at all times. No? I should also understand on the object level such the reality of all names and forms of the universe. Not only I should separate the chit and sat from my intellect and from the world. Most important, I should understand that the chit inside alone is the sat outside. So this consciousness is the manifest universe. So I'm discriminating the world from sat, consciousness from chit, but yet I need to understand that sat, chit are the two natures of the same Brahman, of the same true, real non-dual nature. It's just one appears within my mind, consciousness, and the other appears as the world outside. Different words, but they refer to the same Brahman. They refer to the same self, the same Atma. I am the Sat Chit Ananta. Yeah? I am the Sat Chit Atma. I am the Sat Chit self. So I like sometimes to present, I am the Sat Chit Atma. I am the same thing. Sat Chit are the two aspects of my nature, existence, and consciousness. Okay, and then of course we need to understand I am Sat Chit Ananda Atman, the last third. Okay, why? Because this Sat and this Chit is limitless by nature because it's the only reality, is the only thing that never changes, and it's always ever present. Okay, everything else is mithya. This discrimination is the only solution. So if we know that the final and the only solution is the discrimination between the seen and the seer, satya and mithya, subject and object, so why we do not go direct to the last lesson of Vedanta? Okay, so let's just exercise the discrimination between satya and mithya, between seer and seen, subject and object, is the only solution. But as we know, this discrimination requires a certain preparedness, maturity, certain qualifications, purification, refinement of the body-mind complex. And that brings us to the process of karma, dhamma, upasana, shravana, manana, and nididhyasana. Okay, so when we come to nididhyasana, we are doing the final exercise, Vedantic sadhana. Okay, which is what I'm not the seen. No? Anything that I see, it's not myself, and I understand that the only solution here is to resolve my sense of identification. We have a problem of identity, Okay, so we have identified with that which is not real, and we suffer. We identify with that which is changing and it's bound by time, and we suffer. So I need to identify with that which never change, not never subject to time either. Okay, so I need to keep doing this discrimination, and this is the last final step. Okay, but as we know, it requires certain development of certain qualifications. Okay, and here there is another twist. This discrimination is the only solution, the only remedy. Therefore, the author here says that it's not enough that we do the discrimination, but this discrimination requires a purified, highly sattvic, contemplative intellect. Only then this discrimination is going to fructify, okay? Because the habitual identification with the thing, the body, mind, has to go away. And we're going to have success only to the extent that our intellect is very refined, very qualified. And then we will assimilate it. And then the question, the doubt, this residual ignorance that again and again compels us to identify with the thing and bring us back to samsara is going to leave us alone. The any additional habitual identification with the body mind needs to go away. Any habit has to go away. And here he used the word gradually. Okay, because why it is gradually? Because this ignorance is real. It's a beginningless, and it's a tough one. Okay, we have lived for many incarnations, many lifetimes, identified with the body mind, and to defeat that ignorance requires us certain work, and the pre-qualification I like to put is patience. Okay, know that this ignorance is going to go gradually. Okay, it's going, but it's no longer bothering you as it used to bother before, because it is a residual habit, residual ignorance. Any habit is like an addiction. So addiction, what is the addiction here? Oh, I'm getting old. Oh, my hair. Oh, my body. Oh, geez. So I'm identified with the body. Now, oh, my mental condition. I am identified with the mind, with the emotion. So this habitual habits, okay, has turned to become a what? A huge addiction. Huh? So, and it is ego addiction that it's worst form of addiction. Okay, so we are so habitually identified with I am the body mind that became much more than a habit. It became an addiction. Okay, I am the body became an addiction. Huh? And this addiction does not go away without putting up a fight, as we know. Huh? And this is the worst possible form of addiction. If it's said that moksha means dropping the ego addiction, I am the body mind complex, people will generally opt for dropping moksha because individuality is loved by everyone. This is beautiful. Huh? So if we tell people at the very beginning, that oh no, if you want to be happy and free and get your moksha and your enlightenment, you need to drop addiction to cigarette and coffee. Huh? And then someone will say, oh my god, this is a tough one to drop addiction to cigarette and coffee. No? And then but I think I can do it if I can get enlightened, if I can get moksha, freedom and happiness. I can fight it. Oh, but it's tough, cigarettes and coffee. Huh? But if you tell people that you're going to have to drop your addiction to the body, your addiction to the mind, your identification, addictive identification, I am the body mind, the entity, the experiencing knowing entity who wants to get enlightened, who wants to get self-knowledge, you know? And then the Swami likes to play this joke, this lovely joke. If you tell this to the people at the beginning, they will not drop this addiction of identification with the body mind. They are going to drop moksha. They are going to drop Vedanta. They are going to drop self-inquiry because the individual is loved by everyone. Everybody loves this sense of I am the individual body-mind complex. It's an incredible love that Swami Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say, by all means, love yourself, because everybody loves the body-mind complex. By all means, love yourself, but understand what the self is. You are not the body-mind, understand? But love, you're gonna love it. But this love for the self is somehow mix up with the love for the body-mind complex, because you are taking yourself to be the body-mind due to this lifelong birth and birth-long addiction, misidentification. And if you tell people, oh, you're going to have to drop your identification with the body-mind, and then most people are going to say, oh my God, no, I want to keep my identification with the body-mind so that I can become a body-mind, enlightened body-mind, yeah? A wise body-mind. So I don't let go. I want to become an enlightened body-mind. Isn't it like that, Lynn? I want to be an enlightened body-mind. If you tell people you have to give away this addiction to the body-mind, they're going rather to live or drop the moksha. Because people love to be the individual entity, experiencing entity. People do not like to accept the fact that what I am is not an individual entity. You understand? Oh no, it's not possible. I must be an individual entity, and I want to be an enlightened entity. Huh? I remember some passage, some people that were really frustrated when they heard these teachings. They say, "No, it's not possible. What is in it for me if I'm not an entity that is going to be enlightened, and then I can be adored and respect and worshipped as Brahman." Huh? So yeah, don't drop moksha, drop this ignorance, drop this addiction of identification with the body mind. Although you are so used to be identified that you believe that that's the only reality, and you need to be an enlightened entity, an enlightened body mind. Negation of individuality appears like committing suicide. Suicide. Negation of individuality appears like, oh my God, I'm committing suicide. Bah! No, I'm no longer, an entity. The reality is not what I am as an experiencing entity, the individual. It's like committing suicide. It's killing the ego, but it's not really killing the ego. It's not really committing suicide, because once you understand, once you give up this addiction of identification with the individual body mind, you just shift your identity to consciousness, but you don't kill the body mind complex. Only Ishvara can kill the body mind complex. Ishvara has created the body. Ishvara is going to bring the body back to the elements. You cannot do anything. It belongs to Ishvara's jurisdiction. I leave it alone. I just shift my identification, and I have both worlds at my disposal. I am consciousness, the non-experienced reality, the non-experienced entity, okay? And I am appearing still, exhausting my karma as my inferior nature, appearing nature, as the individual, okay? But I know that the individual is not real. It's an appearance that occurs with seeming Satchitananda, consciousness, existence, understand? So there is nothing to lose. You need to understand that, not to be afraid. It's not really committing suicidal, although it may appear to some, and some people sells this notion that you have to kill the ego. And it's very fearful, and then it turns people away from self-knowledge in many cases. But once it's understood that individuality is another name for mortality, insecurity, it will seem worthwhile to learn how to drop the individuality. Okay? So to be totally addicted, attached, identified with the body-mind complex is to live under this constant apprehension that you may lose your body at any time, especially as we grow in age. Huh? So you understand that this identification is the very cause of fear. Fear of what? What is the mother fear? The mother of all fears is mortality. Okay? Because I am identified as the body is mortal. I learned that at a certain early age. And now I live under this insecurity, this sense of vulnerability, insecurity, fragility, that, oh my God, anything may happen. I'm just eating some olives. The olive gets stuck in my in my throat, and I die. So it's better not to eat olives then. And then you start cutting anything that could be. Now there is a nice pramana, Purana, that describes a situation like that. Someone who was so afraid. He was an incredible bhakta. He was a disciple of Shiva. And then he said, so I'm going to do everything. And my prayers are very powerful. They are fructifying. I have a good life, a lot of punya. And now I'm going to present a list to Lord Shiva, saying that Shiva, it's okay. I understand that mortality is unavoidable here. Everything that's born must die as a name and form. So my prayers now are slightly different. I have come up with 378 ways that I am asking you not to finish me. So he made a huge list. I don't want to die like this, and not with an olive, not like this, not like that. He tried to cover himself because he was a very good devotee. He thought Shiva is going to take sympathy to me. He came with all kinds of. He did a huge research to see how people die. Huh? He thought he was covered, but he missed on several ways. And when his time came, Lord Shiva took the body way back to the elements. Huh? So it's we should never be afraid of losing this insecurity due to the identification with the mortal body. Drop this individuality. Drop the identification with the body mind. And it's important to understand that even if I only drop the identification with the physical body, it's already great, because I drop that knowing that my subtle body does not die with the death of the physical body. That already gives, takes away maybe, a big chunk of my insecurity and fear of mortality of the physical body. I say, okay, but my subtle body is almost eternal. Huh? This draw from the strong addiction to what? To the ego. I am the body mind. To ahamkara is difficult, and generally speaking, requires long nididhyasana, okay? To remove this huge addiction, huge habit, habitual identification. As a part of this nididhyasana, 6 types of samadhi meditation are prescribed, and we have seen it in the previous classes, huh? So that I can become a yani, a jivan mukti, and videha mukti. This benefit was presented in the 31st verse by quoting the Mundaka Upanishad verse. Thus, the samsara problem, the solution, and the benefits were talked about. Okay, so this is present here on the 31st. Let's see what more he says, and then he jumps to the 32nd. Let me just see one thing here. Yeah, the solution is the knot, this ignorance, the knot of the heart is dissolved. The doubts are resolved. The addictions are given up. The misidentification is also dissolved. And then his karmas are exhausted, because when we identify ourselves as consciousness, we know that consciousness is not subject to any karma, any action. You may be subject to karmas if you take yourself to be a doer of actions, the ego. So when I give up this cut of ignorance, this knot of ignorance, the doubts are resolved, the sense I am the doer is resolved, and then karmas get exhausted, and then the non-dual vision, the vision of I, Brahman, becomes clear and firmly established, okay? It's the nature of myself, which is beyond the pair of opposites. This clear vision and understand takes place. Okay, so that's what it is. This verse. Actually, at this point, the teaching of the text is over. In some version, the text itself ends with the 31st verse. In the version On the version of the text that we are studying, some more verses are given. Those verses form the summary of the teaching. The verse can be treated as a separate Vedantic text or as a continuity or summary of the Drsya Viveka. Vedanta text also, because this verse can exist independently without connection with the original Drsya Viveka. So shall we continue the following verse, or you guys want to drop the summary? I think we should continue, and then we establish a plan for our next text. Okay, so we stay with it. I'm going to go through these summaries, maybe not too much in details, especially the part regarding all the meditations. Okay, and then we make our plans for our following text. So the verse 32 here, there are 3 conceptions of a jiva. Consciousness, namely as the limited by prana, as that present in the mind, and the third one as imagined in dream. Okay, to have assumed the forms of man, etc., etc. So this is interesting verse. I wouldn't know much what to make of it. There are 3 conceptions of jiva, and then it has consciousness, meaning to say jiva, as the limited one by prana, as the presence in the mind, and the third one as imagined, okay, in the dream. So we have the 3, let me see what Swami Paramarthananda makes out of this, because it's not clear to me, and I haven't really prepared for this class today. The author here takes a new, unique, and creative approach to Vedantic teaching. So it's a unique, it's different and creative approach to the Vedantic teaching. In the previous portion, he talked about the three Drik and three Drisha. Now I know where he's going with this. So three Drik and three Drishas. In this portion, the author talks about three Jivas within one individual ahamkara. So we have one jiva, one reflect consciousness, and he divides it as three jivas within the individual self, manifests in association with the physical body. Every individual is a combination of these three jivas. When we use the word I, it can refer to any one of these three jivas according to the context. If we understand the context clearly, we will have no problem. Three names are given. The first is called Paramatika Jiva, the second Vyavaharika Jiva, and the third is Pratibhatika Jiva. So we have three levels of a Jiva. The first Jiva is the Jiva who is identified as Paramatma. Yeah? The second is the Jiva identified as the Vyavaharika, meaning to say with the physical body, with that which is the, the Sat aspect of Brahman. And the third is with the mind, the one who dreams, who imagines things, which is our subject reality, the Pratibhatika Jiva. Of them, the first one, Paramatika Jiva, is the name of the original consciousness, as we know, OC, obtaining in the individual. Now I remember this verse, and it's very intriguing and interesting that it presents the Jiva on three levels, beginning by the Jiva as Paramatika. As Paramatika, I am original consciousness. So he stressed Paramatika so that it becomes the Jiva. And this Jiva is Brahman, and I take it that it is the Jiva who has the knowledge, Aham Brahmasmi. The first one is Paramatika Jiva, is the name of the original consciousness, obtaining in the individual soul. The other two, Vyavaharika Jiva and Pratibhatika Jiva, are Chidabhasa 1 and Chidabhasa 2. Now, the other one are two aspects of the Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa literally means reflected consciousness, okay? Reflect consciousness or the ego, ahamkara, okay? So we have two Chidabhasas, 1 and 2. Two types of reflected consciousness, one OC and two RC, reflect consciousness. That way we have the three jivas. So it's interesting because he used a creative, unusual way to present Paramartika as a jiva with the knowledge in respect to its true nature. The original consciousness which exists independently is Paramartika jiva, the Satyan aspect of the jiva. Its existence does not depend on the body or the mind. Even after the destruction of the body-mind complex and even the whole universe, the destruction of the entire universe, this original consciousness will continue to exist. But that consciousness is not available for transaction because the medium for transaction, is not present. Reflected consciousness alone is experienced right like reflected light. Paramatika Jiva is the meaning number one of the word I. So when we say the I is seen as the ahamkara, the ego. It's manifested as the word I. So when we just project this I as the original I, although Paramatika or Brahman will never utter the word I, okay? Because it's not an entity capable of saying anything, understand? But as we experience the reflect consciousness, when we experience reflect consciousness, we experience what? I, okay? And the I appears as the I, physical body, the I, the mental body, okay? And then we see that there is identification with these two aspects of my inferior nature. And then we infer that these eyes, these two jivas, we can infer that comes from the original I. It's just a question of playing with words. The original I is the original Brahman that appears as reflect Brahman, reflect consciousness, which takes two identifications with the body and with the mind. Okay? Okay, let me see here. Reflected consciousness alone is experienced like reflected light. Paramartika jiva is the meaning, number one of the word I. So the I, so in some of our texts, you're going to say the small I, the big I. There is only one I. This I is not an experiencing knowing entity, but is the true I, although Brahman is never there to say, I am Brahman, okay? Because Brahman is beyond this language, this dualistic language. Okay? When the Yani says, I am Brahman, the I refers to original consciousness. So we have the Jiva, but this Jiva is a Yani. And then what is the ego of this Jiva? It's still there, but it's the ego who has been educated by the scriptures, has assimilated and integrated and knows that my true nature, my true identity now has shifted to the true self. Therefore, I am Brahman. So the Yani says, I am Brahman means to say it is a wise ego, because we need to see what is the definition of an ego. And generally speaking, the ego is that aspect of the I, under the spell of ignorance that identifies with the body and the mind. Well, we need to understand the Yani also has an ego, but the ego of the Yani is identified as Brahman, in Brahman, as Brahman. So that is the I, so that is the Jiva who knows I am that Brahman. Now, the I then refers to original consciousness. Okay, doke, I'm going to stop here. This is, you see, it's always nice. It's a summary, but as I remember now, because I have taught this text in Portuguese language, there are some uh, nice concepts in here that they were not addressed in the original 32, 31 verse. Okay, so I'm going to make a sign here, and we meet next week, and we're going to go through this final verse. Okay, and then I'm open for discussions or talks or suggestions regarding what next. There are two texts that I suggest. One is a lovely text that's Tripura Rahasya, the I say the truth beyond the Trinity. What is it? Who remembers the reality beyond the Trinity? Okay, so Tripura Rahasya is a lovely, wonderful, beautiful. It's one of those texts that one falls in love because it's pure Vedanta, but colored as a Purana, a nice romantic story, okay, but rich with pure knowledge and a little touch of experiential concepts as well, okay, to make it a little bit more yummy, a little bit more attractive. We can do that, which would be maybe my first recommendation, or we can do the the text that I taught recently in Portuguese language, Mandukya Upanishad. I'm more inclined to do the Tripura first. It's a small book, would be juicier, more attractive, and will give us a little break from going to the deepest waters of Vedanta with the Mandukya. Okay, so can we have a deal and follow the suggestion of the teacher?
And Sylvia suggested we just work on Panchadasi twice a
Silvia.
week.
No,
Oh,
Silva. Let me say.
continue one thing. I was saying.
Oh,
One
I see.
thing.
Sylvia mentioned last time that we could just stick to Panchadasi. That is another idea. So I leave to you guys to decide to stay focused on Panchadasi or to keep doing two texts. Claudio left. Okay, so I'm going to remind Claudio of this, and then we talk next days. Okay. Okie dokie. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. We meet again next. Let me tell you one thing. We meet usually on Mondays. Next week, when we leave on Tuesday, just a moment, Tuesday. Just a moment. Tuesday. Okay, I will send. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it is. Yeah. So Monday. Most probably I won't be available, but I will be available on Tuesday, and I'm going to let you know very soon, and then we can make our arrangement. Okay. Once again, namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Marco. How was the English? How was the English, Marco? Did you?
Very well. It's very well.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Next time.
Okay. Okay. Namaste again.
Thank you, Orlando.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.